Hey guys, Loot Wizard here with another video on Gems of War, and in this one I'm going to be going over the 10 top exploders in the game. Now, what do I mean by exploders? What I mean by that is an exploder troop or weapon is something that's primary use is to explode gems on the board so that it generates mana for your other troops. So, but I will be leaving out a few troops from this, like the mythic troops Divinia and the World Breaker, which do explode gems on the board, simply because they're mythics and they're harder to get, and not everybody is going to have those. So I'm going to be going over the more common exploders, but a lot of those will be also legendary cards. But I'll be leaving out the mythics. Also, another criteria that I'm using to eliminate cards is also the cards like Infernus, which its primary ability is damage first and then exploding. So the primary thing with these top exploders is that their main thing is to generate mana by exploding the board. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the 10th best one, in my opinion, which is the Firebomb. Now the Firebomb, when fully upgraded, fully traded, it will start battles with full mana, which makes it great for just exploding gems on the board right away. But it does destroy itself, so that's why it's in the 10th spot, because it only explodes 4 red gems, and primarily people will use this Firebomb troop in Explore because it's a great way to get mana for like your Sunbird troop or maybe your hero that has a weapon, so that you can go through Explore really quickly. Firebomb really isn't used that much in PvP for generating mana for your other troops, so it takes the 10th spot. Now in the 9th spot is Karn Axe, which is a mech troop. It explodes 10 random skulls and it gains about 20 armor every time it's cast. When fully traded, it reduces damage from skulls by 25%. It also has an immunity to all status effects, Devour and Mana Burn. And since it gains armor on every cast, its last trait has a 25% of armor is added to its skull damage. Now, the great thing about Karn Axe is that it can explode all those skulls on the board to kind of clear that off, so your enemy doesn't have a lot of chances to connect skulls. The other thing is that it is a mech troop, and with the mech class fully traded, you can get the Karn Axe troop here to start with 50% mana. So it does take red, purple mana, 15 cost, but you can cut that in half, and it'll start with about 7 mana with the mech class. So that's also a really good troop in order to generate mana for your other troops. All right, let's go to number 8. Now, in my opinion, number 8 on the list is the Jar of Eyes weapon, because it explodes brown gems. It summons an all-seeing eye troop. Now, it has a 14 mana cost of green and blue. Now, you can cut this in half with most classes that start with the 50% starting mana. So it has a pretty low mana cost if you choose a hero that has that either the mana source talent, or sometimes in the trait section the class will allow the troop to start, or the hero class to start with 50% mana. Now, the thing about this is that it explodes gems that it doesn't take. It explodes brown, and it takes green and blue. Now, the other thing is that if you upgrade it with ingots, it does create an ice storm, which means that there'll be more blue gems on the board, which will hopefully refill up your Jar of Eyes weapon again. So it's a little bit, doesn't really have a great synergy with itself because it's exploding a color of gems that it doesn't take. So it takes the 8th spot for the best exploder in the game. The 7th spot is Azura. Now, Azura is actually a pretty good exploder because it not only explodes all blue gems on the board when it's cast, but it also does 2 other things. It dispels all enemies, and then it decreases a random skill by 9 on all those enemies. So that random skill could be its magic, it could be its attack, its armor, or its life, but they're all going to get a skill decrease by 9. Now, Dispel is good because a lot of times you'll have troops that get Barrier or some other positive status effect like Enchant, and Dispelling them will clear off all of those status effects that the enemy has. But Azura here has a 14 mana cost, just like Jar of Eyes, except it is a Merfolk and Mystic troop, and there's currently no way for that kind of troop to start with 50% mana, so you're going to have to get the full 14 mana in order for you to cast it. But Azura actually does have really good synergy with the Jar of Eyes, because if you have Jar of Eyes fully upgraded with the ingots, it creates that Ice Storm, which is blue, and which will help you fill up Azura, but then Azura explodes all blue gems on the board. So those two actually do go really good together. Now, on to the 6th top exploder in the game is the Dragon Soul, which it explodes 11 random gems, and then it deals 8 damage to all enemies, boosted by the number of dragon allies. Then it also gains 15 souls. Now, the traits on it aren't really that amazing. It does have a 50% chance to become a baby dragon with full mana on death when fully traded. Other than that, its traits aren't really that fantastic. It does have a 16 mana cost of red and purple, and it is a dragon mystic troop. And there's currently no way for either dragons or mystics in the game to have a half 50% mana starting cost. So you will have to get the full 16 mana up on the Dragon Soul in order for it to every single time there. But the good thing about exploders is that once you explode them, generally a part of its mana is restored from that explosion. So the Dragon Soul is a really good troop. Now on to the 5th best exploder is Divinia. Divinia, I think, is better than the Dragon Soul simply because it not only explodes all red gems on the board, but then it cleanses all allies, and then it gives them 20 life. Now, that's very, very good, because a lot of times your troops will have things like Entangle, or they will be silenced, or they'll have Death Mark, things like that on them, negative status effects. And when you cast Divinia, not only will it generate mana for all your troops, but it'll also cleanse them, and then it'll give them life. So, also its traits are really good because it has an immunity to mana burn, mana drain, and mana steal. So, a lot of times when you're in the game, there's all these troops that will like try to drain your mana or steal your mana, and Divinia is immune to that, which is really good. Now, its final trait is also good because it on 4 or 5 gem matches, it'll cause a random positive status effect on a random ally, which means that it could give it Barrier, it could give it Enchant, it could Bless it, it could give it any one of the good positive effects to any of your troops. So Divinia is really, really good for that, plus it's generating mana for your troops. Now, Divinia is a 15 mana cost troop. It has red and yellow colors, and 15 is actually a pretty good. Now, it is a divine and dragon troop, so since it's a divine troop, if you combine it with the other divine card, Ishbala, you will be able to get it to start at 40% mana. So it'll start with like maybe 6 or so mana, which will leave you with only needing about 9 in order to get it full before you explode it. So Divinia is a number 5 spot. Now let's go on to the top 4. And for the 4th spot, I have the Leprechaun. Now, the Leprechaun is really great for generating mana simply because it, when fully traded, it starts battles with full mana, which means you can cast it right away. Now, also in its traits, it has a Nature Link, which is gaining bonus to green mana, which is really good because you'll be able to get an extra green mana when you connect the green gems. So, for example, if you have a banner that has like a 2+ on green, but you have Leprechaun in your team, you'll get a 3+ to green instead of 2. So, now, the Leprechaun explodes 9 green gems, and it doesn't seem like a real high number, but that's boosted by your gold, and then it gains 20 gold. and the boost ratio is 10 to 1. So for every 10 gold you have, it's going to explode one more green gem on the board. It's going to gain 20 gold too every time you cast it, so that will allow it to explode 2 more green gems every time that you cast it. So after the first time you explode it, it will go from 9 to like 11 green gems that it'll explode. Once you get to like 15 to 20 gems, you're exploding pretty much the entire board by that point. But since it starts with the full mana, it's in my top 4 spot because it can fit into just about any team in order to get your troops a lot of mana right away in the beginning of the match. Now, number 3 spot is Ragnagord. Now, Ragnagord is a really good exploding troop because it starts with 50% mana when you trade it. And it's not the last trait, it's the second to the last trait, which I don't think is quite too expensive. I don't remember exactly how many arcanes that was, but I think it's somewhere around maybe 10. But it's definitely worth it because Ragnagord has a 14 mana cost, and since if you trade it for that 50%, it'll start with 7 mana. So you'll only need to get 7 more in order for it to immediately start its cast. And sometimes if you get a mana surge, like if you pick a banner that's double red or double brown, and then you get a mana surge for either red or for brown, a lot of times it'll fill up with just 1 match, which is great. And then you can just explode it. It does explode 18 random gems of a chosen color. Now, what's really good about that is that it pretty much guarantees that every time you cast Ragnagord, you're going to be exploding the entire board because you can choose the one color that's the most common on the board, and that way you can explode everything pretty much every time that you get Ragnagord up, which means you're going to maximize your mana generation for your other troops. Now, Ragnagord does take the 14. It's a 14 mana cost, red and brown. Now, it is a wild folk troop, so if you don't have Ragnagord traded, but you do have King Silness, I think his name is. He is a wild folk troop that is a legendary card, which allows all wild folk cards to start with 50% mana. So if you combine Ragnagord with that one, if you have that one traded, Ragnagord will start with 50% mana, even if it isn't traded on its own. So that is the number 3 exploder. Now, for the number 2 exploder, it is Gorgotha, which Gorgotha is really, really good because it is a great mana generator, plus it is a fantastic tank in the first spot. When fully traded, it reduces damage from skulls by 75%, and that's one of the highest in the game for skull reduction. Now, Gorgotha is really good with mana generation as well because it explodes 20 random gems, which pretty much guarantees, just like Ragnagord, that you're going to be exploding the entire board every time you cast it. The other good thing about Ragnagord is that it cleanses itself whenever it's cast. So if it has Entangle or if it has Death Mark or any of those negative status effects, it will cleanse itself. The only negative status effect that it can't cleanse itself from is silence, because when a troop is silenced, it loses its ability to cast its spell. So now it does take a 15 mana cost of brown and yellow, and it is a demon. So demons right now in the game don't have any way to start with 50% mana, so you're stuck with getting it from 0 to 15 every time. But Gorgotha is definitely a great troop for exploding. It is my number 2 exploder in the game. Now, for the number 1 exploder, it is the Mountain Crusher weapon. And man, is this thing good. It is the top exploder in the game, in my opinion. And why is that? Well, Mountain Crusher is really good for a few reasons. First of all, it has like the lowest mana cost of all exploders in the game, except for the Leprechaun, because that starts at full mana, as well as Firebomb, but Firebomb really isn't as useful. But it is 11 brown mana is the cost for it. Now, since it is a weapon, if you choose a hero class that has a start with 50% mana at the beginning of the battle, it'll cut that in half. So it'll start with like 5 mana, so you only need to get about 6 in order for it to get up, and then you can cast it. Now, it explodes 20 random brown gems on the board every time it's cast, and if you do upgrade it fully with the legendary ingots, then you will unlock a Dust Storm every time it's cast, and Dust Storm will cause more brown gems to fall down on the board, which pretty much guarantees that every single time that you cast it, you're going to get a bunch of brown falling down on the board, and that will lead to cascades of brown that'll connect, which gives you more mana than just exploding them, and it'll also guarantee that the next time that you explode the board, there's going to be a lot of brown there to explode. Now, the other thing that makes it really good, and probably definitely better than Gorgotha, is the fact that it is a weapon. So it can benefit from all of the talents of any hero class in the game. So right now I have the Titan class here to show off, and all of the talents in that class are really good. So you have Impact. So Mountain Crusher is going to benefit from all of these. So it'll benefit from Impact, which is inflict stun when enemies deal skull damage to me. Then there's Rock Solid, which is gain a barrier when matching brown gems, which is really good with Mountain Crusher because Mountain Crusher takes brown mana, and since you'll be gaining a lot of brown mana every time you explode with it, you're probably going to get a barrier every single time you use it, which barrier will negate any spell or skull damage the first hit. So that's great. And then it will benefit also from Lightning Strike, which is explode 1 yellow gem on 4 and 5 matches, and also Fortitude. So Fortitude will give me immunity to stun, poison, disease, death mark, and devour. So that is why Mountain Crusher for me is the #1 top best exploder in the game. Now, this top 10 list is just my opinion on the different exploders in the game. So if you differ with how I listed them and ranked them, or if you think there's a better one in the game than what's in my top 10 list, feel free to post a comment down in the comment section and let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. Later.